Let's talk a little bit about Montague Hotel. This is the brand new CD from Brad Boyer. It was just dropped this week, and I'm making a big push. I imagine you're out doing radio tours and playing shows and things like that.
I am. In fact, we have June 7th at Good Company, Armadillo Palace, and June 14th at the Old Quarter Acoustic Cafe in Galveston, Texas. With my buddy Rex Bell, who we're talking about.
Rex Bell, yeah.
And
that's Rex, W-R-E-C-K-S.
That's right, yeah.
Bell.
Of Rex's Blues, if you've ever heard
Exactly.
Rex's Blues, that's that same Rex.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of cool players on it. I got Joe Ely singing on a song, the very first track.
That's an interesting story. Tell us how that came about. How did you meet Joe Ely, and how did he decide to go ahead and perform on your CD?
Well, in fact, it involves the Old Quarter in Galveston. Rex hooked me up with an opening spot for Joe, and he liked my songs as he sat backstage, and he had Jeff Plankenhorn, who was playing with him at the time, looking up on the internet.
Another fantastic songwriter,
yeah,
by the way.
And just see whose song it was, because he thought I was covering somebody, and he was sure that he had heard it before, and it was my songs.
Yeah.
And so when I got done, he asked me if I wrote that song, and I told him I wrote all those songs. He said, "You wrote all those?" He said, yeah, except for the One Towns song that I covered at the end, And it was cool. And he did his show, and I gave him a T-shirt, and he put it on. We took a picture, and I thought that was about it. And Lisa Morales, who's excellent, was the producer of
the Morales sisters.
Yeah, Sisters Morales, and yeah, and it just so happened that we just kind of kept crossing paths, and he was able to show up at the studio one day in Austin when we were recording, and was really excited to play on it. He told me, he said, I never thought when I heard you sing that song and I liked it that I'd get to sing on it, And I said, you never thought, You know what I mean? Like, what are you talking about? You never thought.
How cool a feeling is that to have somebody of the caliber of Joe Ely really taken aback by your art?
Is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
but you got some, not just Joe Ely, but you got some other great folks who played
That's
on
right,
the record
yeah.
with you.
And it's really thanks to Lisa Morales for producing it. And I told her, we had long conversations about what I wanted it to sound like and which songs we were going to pick and put on the record. And she was able to get Cindy Cash Dollar and Jeff Plankenhorn and John Carroll and Scrappy Judd Newcomb, and the list goes on and on. Everybody on there, I was shocked that they were coming into the studio.
I didn't realize John Carroll played on it. I kind of, the guitarist from Texas, I kind of go Stevie Ray Vaughan, Eddie Shaver, John Carroll.
He's awesome.
That's kind of the way it is.
He's like a Texas version, or I don't know. He's like Danny Gatton come back to life or something like that.
Very good.
He's really good.
Exactly. Yeah. Tell us about some of the songs on Montague Hotel. Truck Driving Man, a fantastic song.
Yeah, Big Rig Driver. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I wrote that for my grandfather, who passed away last year, and he was a truck driver all his life.
Uh-huh.
And the second verse of it is, well, I would say it's a true story, but I don't know if it's true or not. It's what he told me.
Sort of like a Billy Joe Shaver story.
Yeah, he grew up in Arkansas near Texarkana, and he said this guy hired him when he was like 14 years old to drive him to Tennessee in his car to see his old grandpa who lived up in the hills, and he was getting old and he wanted to go see him, right? And so he drove him out there, and when they got there, he realized the guy wasn't just going to see his grandpa. He was loading up the trunk in the back seat with cases of moonshine and bringing it back to Arkansas.
Exactly how many a great story starts right there.
Yeah, and so he says,
they don't end so well, but they start awesome.
But they drank the moonshine. Well, he was 14, he didn't. And so they drank the moonshine. He said the guy got really drunk, and they were going back home, and there he was loaded down with moonshine, and it was at nighttime, and they were listening to the Grand Ole Opry, and it was the night that they fired Hank Williams on air. And the guy was a big Hank Williams fan, and he was listening, and he became irate and just started getting mad and, wanting to go turn the car around. Let's go back to Nashville. They can't treat me like that.
He's going to
this
go
and
and
that."
dump somebody's desk
Yeah,
over.
yeah. And so this 14-year-old kid, my grandfather, driving this big old Buick, and he says, "Yeah, that's a good idea, but we ought to finish this pint of moonshine first."
Bad
And
idea.
So the guy said, "Yeah, yeah," and he drank it, and then he passed out, which was the plan. So he drove the car back to Wilton, Arkansas, and parked it in the town square and hoofed it home. And I guess never saw him again. I don't know what became of it, but that was the story that he told me. So
Now, when I heard that you were going to be a guest here on the Troubadour Kitchen, I kind of checked around on you, and asked some other people about what they thought. And one of the things that came up was they compared you to a modern day Mac Davis. And when they say that, you remember the old Mac Davis show?
no,
And You're probably too young, but I'm old enough to remember the old Mac Davis show. And one of the things that Mac did was he would have folks in the audience just holler out a sentence, a word, a phrase or two, and he would make up a song on the spot, just like that. And from what I understand, you're able to take just a phrase, a short little statement, and turn it around into a song in a very short period of time. And as a matter of fact, I understand that there is a song on Montague Hotel that happened that way with your grandmother.
The grandmother song.
You wrote
Long
it
Cold
briefly.
December. Yeah, that's right. It's kind of funny, grandma theme. But yeah, my grandfather, the truck driver, was my mom's dad. My grandmother, Long Cold December, was my dad's mom.
Okay.
And she passed away suddenly, and my parents wanted me to sing something at her funeral, which is really hard if you've ever not had to do that.
Imagine.
So that's a hard thing to do, especially if you know the person, and I didn't know what to sing. I did nothing really kind of like shot out. She really loved Ray Price and Merle Haggard a lot, and so I still didn't know on the day of the funeral what I was going to sing, and my mom kept asking me, and I kept saying, "I don't know, but I'll figure it out, don't worry about it." And so it was about an hour and a half or so before the funeral that it just kind of popped in my head, and wrote it down and wrote the song and played it for my mom and dad and sang it at the funeral, and it worked. Worked out good. Everyone loved it. It was a good moment, so I kept it.
And a fantastic way to honor your grandmother by putting it on Montague
Yeah.
Hotel. That's a really nice thing.
Well, thanks.
Yeah,
I
you
think
bet.
she likes it.
Yeah. What's your favorite song on the CD? I know I've been in radio about 20 years, and I've asked that question probably a million times to different artists, and probably 70% of the time what they say is, "Well, I like them all." But you gotta have a favorite.
I do like them all. I guess my own personal favorite, not necessarily for the reason why I like it most. My wife, Amy, likes the song "Smile." She says that's her favorite, and it makes me happy because I wrote that song as a songwriter. You kind of get sometimes locked into writing a certain kind of style.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a guy. You don't oftentimes keep the woman's perspective in the songs. Or you might tend to write these sad sack, contemplating the universe kind of things. You know what I mean? And not everybody likes that all the time. And it's really easy to get immersed in that because they're your own ideas and your own thing. But I wanted to write a song because I was tired of doing that, and I wanted to write a song that was positive and happy, and that my wife would like, that she would drive around, on a hot day like today and listen to, because she likes pop music,
Yeah.
things like that, other things. So it made me feel like I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish, and I think it's a good song. And I got some help from a friend of mine named Matt Harlan on a couple of lines. And,
Fantastic songwriter
yeah.
from Houston as well, who we're going to have on the show.
Yeah. In fact, there's 2 songs on there. I think 2. I wrote with him, and I got some help from Lisa Morales on that also. To really help finish it off, and And she helped me on the bridge. You know, it was just missing something, and I was just kind of stuck on that. You know.
Yeah.
But I'm proud of that song because I think it's a good song, and it's not in my comfort zone.
Uh-huh.
So I feel like I accomplished something.
Push yourself a
with
little
it.
bit.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which is the only way you
Yeah.
grow as an artist, I
Yeah,
imagine.
and plus it made my wife Amy like it, and you know she listens to it, and that's a cool thing.
Keeps you off the couch.
Yeah, yeah. So to
You know,
speak,
you
yeah.
mentioned several great Houston artists: Matt Harlan, Sisters Morales, Rex Bell, of course, from the area as well. Joe Ely from the Panhandle, but plays in this area quite often. Houston is really gathering its own sort of musical community. Not that they haven't had it before, but it's beginning to get noticed much more. What are your feelings on the Houston music scene right now?
I hope that that's true, you know, because it has always had an important role in at least the history of music in Texas and country music. In fact, at least, George Jones recorded here.
Right.
Willie Nelson supposedly wrote "Hello Walls" and "Crazy" and "Nightlife," living in Pasadena. You know? Lightning Hopkins, Mance Lipscomb.
All Sugar
Buddy
Hill
Ledbetter,
recording
yeah,
artists,
you know.
almost, it seems
well,
like.
and then
A lot
and
of them-
also, you know, from what I understand, the whole Austin scene basically grew out of the Houston folk scene and the Dallas blues scene. Everybody kind of sort of meeting up in Austin, mixing around. Towns lived in Houston.
Yeah.
Guy Clark was like an art director at a TV station or something like that.
Right.
You know, and I think Houston's always had just people who did something different, like in spite of what the rest of everybody else was doing.
Yeah.
You know, because oftentimes, I mean, Houston's a big town. You know, it's as I think it's like the third largest city in the nation now, and that's a big deal, you know. And so they don't necessarily embrace, like Austin does, call themselves the live music capital of the world, or like Nashville, you know. So you kind of have to rise up out of the scene sort of on your own in spite of what everybody else is doing, and you just kind of have to be determined to do it, because there's not a lot of support outside of radio stations like KPFT
Right.
and things like that.
And that really seems to be the biggest drawback to the Houston music scene, because there's plenty of clubs that support local artists, but there doesn't seem to be the radio support that you'd like to have.
There's very
know.
very little.
And I'm sure being a large radio market run by big corporations,
yeah, and that's
you know,
probably the main reason.
exactly. We need more and more smaller stations to be able to branch out and to latch on to the local scene and
agree.
really make it something.
Well, and also Houston is such a big place, geographically speaking. You know, I mean, it takes
Spread out.
Yeah, it takes you an hour to drive. I mean, probably more than that to drive across. And there are so many. It's also very. It's a very diverse city. So there's like a really good hip hop scene, which I know like zero about, but there is, you know.
Yeah.
And there are different kinds of music, you know.
Right.
There's good Mexican music. There's good black music. There's good country music and rock music and all these different things that aren't concentrated in certain areas and things like that. They sort of exist on their own,
Yeah.
without the need for
lot
for
of
everybody
promotion.
else to think it's cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They just do it. So,
Yeah. Well, Montague Hotel hit the streets today. Where can folks pick it up?
you can get it on iTunes. You can get it from my website, bradboyermusic.com. There'll be links for there. You'll be able to get it at Cactus Records soon. You'll be able to get it at all the CD Baby, all the typical places.
Most major music outlets everywhere, as
Yeah,
they say.
yeah.
There
That's
we
what
go.
I was looking for.
All right. Well, you know what? I would love it if you
Or you could get it from me at a show if you go to bradboyermusic.com, put your email address in there, and come see me. I will have one for you.
could cut out the middleman.
Yeah.
That's the best way to do it. We would love it, Brad, if you could play some tunes off Montague Hotel. Can we do that?
I would love to. Yeah,
All right.
let's do.
Let's get back over to the lounge, and we're going to hear some Brad Boyer.